For this video's topic, I just want to talk about one game that has basically flown under the radar for the past couple of weeks, or should I say month, really. And that game is DNF Duel. Now, DNF Duel, on release date, had a sizable amount of players playing just concurrently at any given time. Then, when players figured out that there was a lot of bullshit in the game, a lot of broken character mess-ups and whatnot, and mechanics that don't really do it justice as to what is portrayed in the game, just seems to me that the game is heading in a direction where it's not really quote-unquote a competitive game. A game where you can just compete with other players and you can utilize the mechanics to their best effort and then, win your matches and whatnot. There's a reason why a lot of creators consider DNF Duel to be this Konsoge game, which, if you don't know what Konsoge is, I'll just put it up onto the screen so you can see what that means. But basically, the game is hitting in a downward spiral, and it's mostly at fault with the developers at hand. I don't know if it's ArkSystemWorks' fault, or if it's Aiding's fault, or if it's Neopol's fault, or Nixon's fault, that the game is in such a dire state right now. It's been like almost a month. We're almost a month in, and there's no actual updates for DNF Duel to circumvent the issues that the game currently has. And players are dropping the game. Dropping it. Completely. Because why would you bother to play DNF Duel when you can just go to Guilty Gear Strive? Hell, even Type Lumina is doing a far better job right now than it is with DNF Duel. And that game, at the startup, had I wouldn't say deplorable, but I would say it didn't really have a huge fan base. Or at least it didn't have a large audience to really play the game. During maybe like the first month, maybe the game had a decent amount of players, like 1,000 players playing on Steam. And then they dropped the game immediately, then it dropped down to like around 100 players or so. And now it's like bumped up again, like heavily. All because of one update, and that one update added in 2 new characters, a lot of system changes, nerfs and buffs here and there, added attacks to some characters and whatnot. Like, these are great updates. Or update. Or is it updates? And with DNF Duel, you see nothing. I'm not saying there was anything at all. There was a couple of things that the developers done for DNF Duel, but there were mostly bug fixes, like with the training mode bug that was going on, keyboard problems, and I don't know if they. I guess they patched the infinites. I don't know if they patched every infinite in the game, but they basically patched the one infinite that Striker had, I think, and the one that Crusader had as well. But besides that, there wasn't any actual balance patches or any updates in mechanics and whatnot to really fix the issues that the game currently has now with the current meta. So I don't know, you see, it seems like the developers aren't really happy with their product, maybe, or maybe it's just that Nexon is just like not trying like they usually are. But I digress. I feel like, if anything, the best thing they can possibly do is that, okay, we're still waiting for the update. Hopefully when the update comes out somewhere late August, it's a big update. Hopefully it's a big update that fixes a lot of problems. They nerf the shit out of Swiftmaster so they can drop them in bottom tier or some shit. I would like that for sure. Also nerf Striker, because that bitch is so annoying to fight against. Drop kicking every single fucking time. It's so annoying. Buffing some of the weaker characters in the game, like Launcher, like she can barely even deal proper damage, and she has almost no combo variety. Like, it has to be a strict counter hit, or it has to be in the corner. That's it. Like, it's sad to be a Launcher main if you don't know when exactly the update's going to be coming up, and if that update will do anything for your main. So it's like, it's a little bit disheartening, really. And then how about Vanguard, the character that I was playing for a while, and then that character, it might seem like he's strong at a viewpoint, but that character is ass. Like, I'd rather just be playing Berserker instead, if that's the case. Or Hitman. Then you have the mechanics in the game. You got your guard cancel, your rolling, but these two mechanics are shit. It's like one of the two worst defensive mechanics that you can see that implement the defensive mechanics in the game that you can never see. You can see other games, like let's say Persona, Guilty Gear, BlazBlue, they have already fundamentally better defensive mechanics in game that is well implemented. Why couldn't they just reference from their own game? If ArkSystemWorks is one of the developers that are working on the game, you would have thunk that they would have, okay, let's add some decent mechanics into the game. Like, I get that maybe their perspective is to make the game easy, to make it more casual friendly, but you didn't need to like discard every other option in terms of what you could have added to DNF Duel for defensive mechanics. But logically, in theory, I would say that the current defensive mechanics do their job, just so they do a shit job at it. So hopefully in the big update, they will also do something about that, and they'll also look into buffing these mechanics, because rolling in itself isn't such a great mechanic when it's being used properly. When you think that you're making the right reads, but then some characters just obviously just don't, you just can't roll into them because they have so many good fast recovery moves that even if you think that, okay, this move should be rollable, nah, they recover like 2 frames later on, and then they catch you off guard and do their combos and whatnot. It's just, if anything, if the developers don't do anything to the updates, the game will definitely die. The game will definitely die, and that's it. Move on to the next fighter that comes out, and hopefully that game doesn't die. Because, I mean, Guilty Gear Strive already set a precedent. Did I say president? Precedent on exactly what an anime fighter should be like. How an anime fighter should basically continue to balance and achieve better success and longevity and whatnot and prosperity. You don't see that with DNF Duel. Hell, what was the last game that died super fast? Wasn't it like Kill la Kill If? That game died super quickly too, and that game had just some decent fundamentals. It had some quirky characters, yeah. I mean, for me, the only characters that I really cared about was the Bitch in White and Bitch in Red, because I don't know their names. The other characters, that they didn't feel fun to me at all, really. And if they just, announce new characters, I mean, they kind of did, but, that's besides the point. And the matchmaking system, what am I getting into? Why am I talking about a different game altogether? Either way, my point is that game also died super quickly. And it died even harder on Steam, when it came out on Steam. So, if DNF Duel is going to be another game that, for the longest time that players have been waiting for this game to come out, finally comes out, does well during its release, not even a month goes in, and players are already leaving the game. So, I don't know. I feel that, again, hopefully the update does something that really warrants players to come back to the game. Because if Type Lumina can do it, then why not DNF Duel, right? Either way. I do have a few points, though. One point that I have is that if they were to do anything in general to the mechanics in the game, is that I'm hoping that they buff rolling. Guard cancel as well, because there's a few things why I want those two mechanics to be buffed. For one, rolling is just, the recovery rate for that particular mechanic is just too slow. I don't think slow is the word. It's like it has too many frames between the recovery rate. It should be lower, so that way, utilizing roll actually has its benefits. But right now, it just feels like it's hit or miss between certain matchups. Like, there's certain matchups that you can roll, like against Lost Warrior, for example. Then there's other matchups where it's like you can't roll at all, or you're gonna get fucked. And then with guard cancel, some characters have decent guard cancel attack, if that makes sense, and others don't have the same quality of attack when it comes to using the guard cancel. Like Grappler, for example. Grappler's guard cancel, the distance between him hitting the target is just basically like 2 inches. No, not even 2 inches. I'm not using my finger on the screen or anything like that, but let's just say, in terms of him touching the target in real time or whatever, I would say it's 2 inches. Because he can literally miss if he's not close enough to the target while guard canceling. So hopefully they do something between that in the patch. And then for the rolling mechanic, I'm just hoping that they make it faster to recover. If they do those two things, then maybe it won't feel as oppressive when you're fighting against Swiftmasters, Strikers, Inquisitors, Dragon Knights, Koniichi, so on and so forth. You know, that it won't feel like shit that when you roll into them and suddenly it's still their turn. So that's one thing. My other thing is that I'm hoping that they do add, maybe, hopefully, if it takes them a month to add in a new the patches, the update to the game. I'm guessing it's because they're working on something big, maybe, and that something big could be that hopefully they add a new mechanic, a new defensive mechanic to the game. Like, people are hoping for something like maybe you can actually have air block, but that doesn't really feel like something that's intuitive to the game, because the game is built with the idea that you'll only block on the ground, similar to Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. It's the same shit. So I don't know why people want air block. Because if you want air block in DNF Duel, why can't Versus have that same thing? You know? It doesn't work. It's like if you were asking for air block on Street Fighter V. It's not built in that manner. So I don't think that is something that they're going to have in the game if they do update it. But what's likely, maybe a burst mechanic. But the thing is that if they're trying to follow along the side of DFO, Dungeon Fighters Online, then I don't think that they're going to add in a burst mechanic either. DFO in PvP didn't have burst mechanics. It had its own unique mechanics, but it didn't have burst mechanics. What I could think they probably might do is add some kind of tech rolling mechanic. Now, the way this might work from my perspective is that if they're trying to take it from reference from DFO in PvP does have something similar to a roll tech, you know, or a ground tech or whatever, right? Or tech roll, when you're knocked down on the ground. And it works where, okay, let's say you're getting knocked down from a move in PvP, and then you can press spacebar, escape immediately from the ground. You basically just do like a quick wake up, and then you're just invulnerable to attacks for I think 1 second, 1 full second, or is it maybe half a second? So that way you're able to then move around, get away from the enemy, or maybe use your own move against them if they're trying to spam their attacks. And you can use that half second or second of invulnerability frames to attack back the enemy. Unless they're smart about it and they move away from you, then, well, you have that to worry about. I think the mechanic is called Rebound. I'm not too sure, but if it is called Rebound, they can somewhat integrate that into DNF Duel. Except, if they were to integrate it, then you might think to yourself, well, wouldn't that be spammed? Well, in DFO, when you use Rebound, again, not too sure if it's the correct name term for that move, that mechanic, but when you rebounded and woke up earlier from a combo and whatnot, it was put down on cooldown. So you had to wait until it was off cooldown to reuse the rebound system. So they can simply implement that same system to DNF Duel, where, okay, you get knocked down from a target, they're gonna go for their relaunch from off the ground. So you just rebound immediately, roll tech away, and then now you have the offensive to attack back the enemy. They can also do the same thing, but once that happens, once you use the rebound mechanic in DNF Duel, it goes off cooldown. Or sorry, it goes in in cooldown, and then you have to wait until, let's say, maybe, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 seconds. I will say at properly, maybe to make it balanced wise, I think 10 to 15 seconds. 10 to 50 seconds, however long a burst should come back during a round, that's how long the system should come back as well. So it acts like a burst mechanic, except it works only when you're getting attacked. Similar to burst, I guess. But yeah, so you just get attacked, you're getting knocked down, and then you can decide to basically rebound whenever you want. That's essentially how the system works. Except it's not like a burst where you just push the enemy away from you. You just do it to get away while you're knocked down from the ground, essentially. So I think if they do something like that, then I think that can somewhat improve the quality of the gameplay of the game. This way, if players are getting knocked down in the corner and they can't escape no matter what, they have a choice to either just rebound immediately. And if you use it wisely, just like you do in Guilty Gear Strive or any other game that has the burst mechanic, that you can use to your advantage and actually go back at neutral, or maybe even take the offensive. I think that would be a nice touch to the game. Then, one new mechanic that I'm just thinking of right off the bat is a mechanic called Guard Rolling. Now, Guard Rolling works the same way as Guard Cancel. You're just blocking the incoming hits, and then you expend some resources and then you roll into the target's attack, or trying to get around them, like crossing them up. But the difference is that this particular type of rolling has a faster recovery frame, so that way you can get up immediately and go back at idle stance and then attack your target immediately if you want to, I guess. That way, at least it's used in an offensive and defensive manner, so that way you can actually, you know, make a comeback. Unlike with guard cancel, that is so easily punishable if you make the choice to do so. So with guard rolling, what I thought that could be a resource they can expend isn't mana. I thought to myself, maybe instead of mana, maybe health. Health should be a better choice. Now the reason why I think health is a better choice is that if you're really using your resources for guard cancel with mana, what will they do for guard rolling? Will they just make it so that you also have to expend another 100 mana to guard roll? But if that's the case, then would that not make guard cancel useless? What will be the reason to use guard cancel if you can just have guard rolling, right? So I thought maybe make it so that you expend health, and a sizable amount of health. So let's say you expend like 20%, or maybe that's a bit too much, but let's say like 10%, maybe 10-15% of your health is gone. I think that seems reasonable to me, because if you want to get out the corner or you want to get out from a certain block swing pressure, you can just guard roll away, expend some health, and then you're in the offensive now. Of course, they can use that against you as well, then you're even more fucked than you already were. But if not, then you may have the opportunity to make that comeback, more so than with guard cancel. So that's another mechanic that I thought that could probably be added to the game, but that's just me. I don't understand the mindset of the developers. I don't know what they think about when it comes to mechanics that they want to improve, or that they want to buff, or they want to nerf, or they want to add in. But that's just me. Then when it comes to character balance, I'm hoping that, again, the characters that I already mentioned, Swiftmaster, Striker, and so on and so forth, I'm hoping that these characters are actually nerfed in some shape or form. You can't tell me that these characters are not so oppressive that, because if you're saying to me that the top, 5 characters in the game don't need nerfs, then you must think that the characters below low tier don't need some kind of buff. Because if you think those are high tier, or if they're not high tier and they don't have what it takes to be high tier in any way, then I wonder what's your perspective between the bottom 5 tier characters that I think are bottom tier. All I can say is that the 5 characters that I mentioned, they need to be buffed some way that makes them relatively stronger in gameplay, and the top 5 characters need to be nerfed in some way so that it doesn't feel super oppressive when it comes to figuring out what particular type of attack can be punished. So that's one thing. But I think that's basically all I can really say in terms of what needs to be changed in DNF Duel. I feel like, if anything, a lot of players want some kind of matchmaking connection change or fix, because there are players that have issues with that. I have issues with that as well at times. It doesn't happen frequently, but it does happen. So I'm hoping that maybe, yeah, they'll try to do something between those lines, but I doubt it. You know why I doubt it? Because Guilty Gear Strive still has connection issues. That game still has connection issues, matchmaking issues. So if that game, who is probably the poster boy game for Arc System, isn't doing an amazing job when it comes to the matchmaking and connection issues, I'm not talking about rollback. I'm talking about like when you want to matchmake with somebody, that issue. That's still present in Guilty Gear Strive. What makes you think that DNF Duel, that's a smaller game compared to Guilty Gear Strive, is going to have a fix for matchmaking? And if they do, well, God bless the developers for doing a good job on that part if they manage to fix it. But besides that, I don't really think there's anything else, because there are bugs in the game. There's small bugs. I don't think there's any game-breaking bugs that I've seen. Maybe other players have. They can give that feedback to the developers and whatnot. But I haven't seen any game-breaking bugs. Unless you consider Vanguard's DP to be a bug, because for some reason that doesn't hit any targets that are crouch blocking, or just crouching in general. Like, you can be literally touching his nuts. Like, you're so close to him that you're touching his nuts, and he can DP you while you're crouching, and you're not gonna get hit by the DP. And there's some kind of clipping issues as well, where some attacks don't hit the target. Like Ghostblade's 2A. Sometimes Ghostblade's 2A does not hit the target. Like, it actually whiffs completely if it's too close to the target. So that could be considered a type of bug, or maybe just a hitbox problem. Who knows? So yeah, that's somewhat of of the few things that I consider to be issues that maybe they can also look into. But either way, I digress. I think that's it, really. If you consider my thoughts as to be irrelevant and you don't think that I'm correct with what I'm saying, the game isn't dead or whatnot, or the game needs to be improved in some way, which if you're one of those minority of people that think that the game doesn't need any work, that the game is fine how it is, that it's a fine Kosoge game, well, continue playing the game for what it is, and it'll die down fairly shortly if nothing happens in the end of August. I truly believe that. And if you're one of the group of players that have their own, set of thoughts that they want to voice under the comment section, voice your opinion. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you think the game needs any changes or any fixes or characters needs to be nerfed or what needs to be buffed and whatnot. And if you don't agree with me at all and you just want to just shitpost, then yeah, you can do that as well. I don't really care. So yeah, that's it. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more shit. Like the video so YouTube can actually put me up there somehow. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I make a new video and it gets uploaded. Yeah, and yeah. Stay tuned.